This is a great event for us. The Meet the Candidates Night is, in essence, part of a commitment and a passion on behalf of the MRC to enhance civic engagement and civic participation. And this is one of the steps that we undertake in the Meet the Candidates exercise, alongside what does your local Member of Parliament do, and how do you make sure your vote counts, and how to actually make a representation directly to Members of Parliament. So we have a very strong passion. This is one of the steps that we undertake, and a really important one.
My role is to ask your questions from the audience. I'm not asking any of my own questions, and my other role is to keep things moving along so that we can get through everything we need to.
Professional background has been as a lawyer. I have worked predominantly in planning and environmental law. I've always been passionate about the housing industry and infrastructure and looking at how we can better plan our cities. And I know that that has been a particular interest out here in southwestern Sydney, which has grown at a very rapid rate over the last few decades. My most recent job was I've worked both in the private sector at top-tier law firms, and more recently I worked at Georges River Council as the Director of Legal Services there. I am passionate about looking at how we plan our cities better, and the fact that local, state and federal governments working together can improve housing affordability.
I am a local resident. I have lived in the electorate since I was 1, and I have seen lots and lots of changes in our electorate. And I've also seen how successive governments have not taken on board that and made sure that we are properly looked after out here. All the communities in the room were badly affected by an outbreak of COVID last year. And it's time that we were considered as first-class citizens and not a problem to be solved. We need infrastructure, we need healthcare, we need GPs, and we need to be able to live and work and close to home. So I look forward to going and continuing to advocate in this part of the world for that. And I believe that our alternative as the Labor Party will give this part of the world what it needs to continue to go forward.
I believe the great people of Werriwa deserve a local member that's going to work for them. It's going to work for the community. For far too long, the great people of Werriwa have been taken for granted. I want to work for you, I want to work for your family, I want to work for your community. On the 21st of May, I ask you for your support to make a new beginning and change. It's time for change, it's time for a new member.
I'm 22 years old and I've just recently graduated from university, and I'm now in the workforce with an enormous debt hanging over me, just like so many of my young peers. So we're fighting for a country that's beyond coal and gas and looks into the future with renewables and plans to supercharge our manufacturing, free dental and mental into Medicare, abolishing student debt and making TAFE and uni free and accessible childcare, and easing the housing crisis by building 1 million new homes. We're going to fund all this by taxing the billionaires who have doubled their wealth during COVID and the 1 in 3 corporations that pay no tax. Look, I'm here today because I believe we can have a better future, but we have to fight for it, and I'm ready to fight for it. Thank you.
So I put my hand up to run because I wanted to make sure that the people of southwestern Sydney had an advocate for freedom. And if I didn't put my hand up, I was unsure whether there would be somebody that would put their hand up to stand for these values. Now, another thing that I'm very passionate about is small government and lower taxes. And this is the reason why I decided to run with the Liberal Democrats, because I believe that one of the only parties that is really dealing with the spending issues, dealing with the excessive taxation that we all experience. Our party wants a smaller government and a bigger citizen. We want you to keep more of your money so that you can make decisions about how it's spent. One of the policies I'm really excited about in our Freedom Manifesto, you can get a pamphlet at the back, we want to increase the tax-free threshold to $40,000 and decrease the tax rate to a 20% flat tax. We think that's the best way to address cost of living, to help low-income earners, and it's a sustainable way as well, because we can't just keep giving free money away and spend our children's future into oblivion. If we just let people keep more of their own money and let them make the choices, that'll empower the citizens and take the power away from government.
For my purpose here is one of freedom, and it is the freedom to choose, informed consent, and it is also a cornerstone of our democracy that you have a choice, and that's what I fight for on a daily basis. For me, I am very grateful that we reside in a country such as Australia, but in order for us to keep it that way, we must have those decisions, and those decisions need to be kept with us. We can't have government stand over us and tell us what we can do, where we can go, and what we must put in our body. We have many people, both emergency services, who have lost their jobs. And when the floods hit New South Wales, I was on the ground for 10 days with these emergency services workers who were sacked here in New South Wales, and yet they were good enough to save lives in northern New South Wales at the height of the floods. That's the type of person I am, and that's the type of person I want to fight for. I want to fight for my candidates and all my constituents.
Here we have the most successful multicultural nation in the world. We are in one of the most multicultural countries in this nation, and I would say that Fowler is proudly one of the most multicultural parts of that city. And I look forward bringing the strength and experience I have as the 42nd Premier of New South Wales, having worked in this community and representing it in the federal parliament. We've got an aged care crisis, we've got a cost of living crisis, we have a housing crisis here, particularly in southwest Sydney. We can do better than this tired 9-year-old Liberal government. So I thank you for your participation tonight and your participation in our democracy. Your vote is powerful. You can vote to change the country, and I'm asking for your vote on May 21 to vote for a better future.
I'm the independent candidate for Fowler. I'm currently the Deputy Mayor for Fairfield City Council. I arrived here as a refugee from war-torn Vietnam in the 70s, so having grown up here in southwest Sydney, I understand too well the experiences of many of our refugees and migrants in our community, and the services, the lack of services that we have experienced over the last decade. There are many of you in this room that I know the settlement of refugees in the last few years here has really caused a lot of issues and put a lot of pressure on our families and infrastructure in our city. For me, I will definitely be fighting for us, giving voice to our community in federal parliament, with lived experiences, and also living amongst our community, understanding the issues and the challenges that we've faced, in particular in the last couple of years. I'll keep mine short, and I'll keep it open for questions later.
I basically put my hand up to fight for my community after all the negative impacts of the lockdowns and the restrictions that were imposed upon our electorate. I saw firsthand what it did to our community. I felt it, I was there, I lived it. Now, there were small businesses closed their doors. Just the other day I went out to visit some constituents in Carramar. Couldn't believe it. So many businesses have closed their doors. There's only 2 shops operating. And another thing that also is a reason that I put my hand up with, that people were actually losing their jobs. They were also forced to participate in an experimental mandate and vaccination. So, I had to do something. I felt like a person that believes in freedom of movement, freedom of choice, freedom of speech, and freedom of a religion. I decided that it was time. I needed to do something.
I'm a 20-year-old non-binary anti-poverty activist. I use my experiences of poverty and homelessness to fight for meaningful social change within my community, and I am the Greens candidate for Fowler. We also struggle to get involved because we're focused on more pressing issues with our lives, such as the rising cost of living, rising temperatures, rising medical and childcare costs, and rising floodwaters. I got involved in the Greens because I've had personal experience of poverty and homelessness. I've struggled for years, living below the poverty line on youth allowance, while the ever-growing housing crisis makes renting so unaffordable, and the cost of living makes even the basic groceries feel like luxury. Over 62,000 people in Fowler alone are on some form of income support, and I bet that almost every single one of us is living in poverty. And that's why I'm standing here today, because as the Greens, we have concrete policies that address the inequality crisis that our community faces, such as expanding Medicare to add free dental and mental health, building 1 million new public homes, funding our education sector to provide free childcare, TAFE and university, and bringing Centrelink payments above the poverty line. I'm standing to fight for a better future for our community. This election is crucial, and I implore you to vote for the candidates who have your best interests in mind, not theirs. Thank you.
A local for 50 plus years in Liverpool, Fairfield area, so I know Fowler well. Involved with my community, which is a Christian community, and understand and acknowledge the multi-faith and multi-cultural aspect of this community. I think we're at a place where we need to do things different. A lot of government programs, a lot of efforts at changing our world, our community through government, and I think, as my colleague Victor has said, really we want to do something different. We're looking at the individual. We're looking at governments that should tax less, spend less, and just be less.